Marcus, just so you know, we are live on YouTube. So
it helped if I turned my mic on, Carol. I was just looking to see if we were live on YouTube yet, but I appreciate you letting me know. Looks like we just crossed to the 1 o'clock hour, so we will get started. And I appreciate everybody coming in today. We've got a pretty heavy schedule, and I will try to help us move through it as quickly as possible. Sometimes we get bogged down, but maybe we can keep things moving pretty quickly today. I would like to go ahead and call the meeting to order, and Amber and Josh will be checking the participant list and be able to check off who is in attendance for our roll call. First thing I'd like to bring before the Senate is the minutes from the February 9th meeting for a vote. Are there any discussions on the minutes from the February 9th or changes or corrections that need to be made? All right, hearing none, I would like to call it to a vote. All those that are opposed, please signal with your hand or use the raise hand icon. See, no one's opposed. Any abstentions? I see no abstentions, and so the minutes are approved. I know we've got some guests on here, so what I think we will try to do with the meeting today is we will go ahead and do the Chancellor and Provost question answer session and have their comments, and then we'll move into our voting RMEs. So usually the question and answer session lasts about 30 minutes. So we'll get that out of the way at the beginning and then move into the RMEs, and then we'll move into our other reports and business that we have. I will start off by saying that I appreciate again all you being here. We've been having the faculty listening and learning tours. I think the Chancellor himself has been on probably close to 100 of them. I have attended over 20 with him because I only go to the faculty ones. He's doing also with the staff and the students and the community and others. And I can tell you that they're going well. I know I've seen a lot of you on those meetings, and I appreciate all that you're sharing there. And I look forward to what we're getting out of them, how it's going to be used in putting together our long range plans. And so as we move from my comments into the Q&A session with the Chancellor and Provost, I will start off with a question for the Chancellor, basically as to what his feel is on the listening and learning tours and where he's looking and how things are moving toward the pillars for our strategic planning. So we'll start off with that question, Chancellor.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Oldham, and thanks to everybody who's on the call. It's good to see you again. Many of you, we've actually been engaged in some of those sessions that Dr. Oldham just talked about. They've been very helpful for me. Now almost 9 months of being here, I've been able to learn a lot about our institution. I've learned about the things that are working well. I learned about the things that are maybe working or not so well, things that we probably need to focus on and enhance. And I've been able to meet with a pretty large cross section of faculty from the various areas across the university. And as Dr. Oldham mentioned, we still have more to go. And so as you can imagine, some of those themes that come up are things that we talk about all the time, whether it's enrollment, whether it's focus on research, whether it's budget or any budgetary items that are out there, strategic planning. I've been hearing some of the same things over and over again. Marketing, branding, morale, you name it, it's come up. And so it's been helpful to hear it from a cross section of folks that are here. The idea, as I've mentioned before, is really at the end of this month, early next month, it finally comes to an end. And I know Dr. Odom's happy about that because he's been on every one of these with me, but we've met a lot of people. But the idea is that from all that information, we have about 5 broad pillars that, not to give them away or mess with, some folks have told me specifically, here's one we ought to have. I'm going to come back to you with those 5 so you can really tell me what you think about those 5 and really give me some more feedback there. And then that will be our 5 that we focus on. That really lays the foundation for the strategic plan. So hopefully your voice is in one of those 5 areas, things that you have mentioned, because if it's not, it really does not get the amount of attention that it would need or require. So the idea of those pillars is that what you told me gets inside of, it's a voice, right? It stays inside of the document. It forces us in a good way to put the strategic action in play. And that's the point of where we are right now. So the plan, hopefully late July, strategic plan should be near completion, where we can launch it with the new academic year and all be operating under at least one standard document based on everything you've told me. So it's not my plan. I tell people all the time, this is not the chancellor's strategic plan. It's Southern Illinois University Carbondale's strategic plan. And I was telling someone that the other day because they said, "Oh, when's your strategic plan come out?" I said, "You mean when is our strategic plan coming out?" Because it's a combination of everything that you've told me. So I wanted to make sure I clarified that for the person who said that, because it's just my plan. It won't be executed. We won't be able to get where we want to be without all of you and the rest of the staff that are out there trying to move the needle. So that's where we are with that, Dr. O.
I appreciate that. And I'll throw one question to the provost to get her off and running too, and then I'll open it up for anybody else questions. But I know we had the pass, no pass grading last spring, and we also continued it into the fall. And I know it's under consideration for this coming semester, or the semester we're in now, the spring semester. What kind of feedback are you getting on that? And then maybe there'll be some discussion from the faculty with you on that based upon your responses here.
So, so far I've heard back from the undergraduate student government, USG and GPSC, as well as the NTT faculty, and waiting to hear from Faculty Senate and Grad Council, and have also heard back from the TT FA. So the 2 student groups are very supportive, and they would like the grading scale policy or the adjustment to the grading scale be extended for this semester. For the NTT faculty, they had done a survey, and 73 faculty responded. Out of them, 58% was supportive of extending it for this semester, and 42% were not. And then for the faculty, the tenure track faculty, so this was the NTT Faculty Association. And then for the Tenure Track Faculty Association, their stance was similar to last semester, where a majority of them did not support extending it. And then the GAU is supportive of the pass, no pass. So that's, and I'm waiting to today to hear back from Faculty Senate and Grad Council. So that's where we are. And then I think in terms of data that the Grad Council had requested, I also shared with you, Marcus, was that in the last 2 semesters, what percentage of undergraduates chose this option? So it's about 25% of students chose it. And for the grad students, about 3% and 2% chose it for each of the 2 semesters. So that's the number of students who opted for this.
Okay, thank you. I will open it now to the faculty senate for questions or maybe comments and discussion on either of the things that were just brought up. So go ahead, Jacob.
Thanks. I know I saw Joe had us, for some reason, I
Oh,
can't
okay.
find my hand.
I was looking to the screen first and the hands later. But you go ahead and we'll get Joe next.
Thank you, Jacob. I have two very brief questions, one for the chancellor, one for the provost. So Chancellor, could you, I must have missed this somewhere before, because you've talked about strategic planning in the last couple of months. How long term is this plan going to go for? Because one of the big issues of this university since I arrived here in 2007, and it may predate my arrival for all we know, but certainly in my own direct experience over the last 14 years here, we have strategic plans that don't really last very long. And so I'm hopeful that whatever, all the effort you're putting in right now and we're putting in to make this strategic plan, that it has a longer term to it, because it's we can't have these like stop go kind of we don't really progress if we have that. So could you speak a little to that?
Yeah, that's the most important piece in developing a strategic plan, at least in my experience in doing this. What probably we did not have in the last plan was some accountability or targets in those plans, some real quantitative targets that we could focus on. That will be in this plan. So everything that we say we're going to focus on, we're actually going to assign a measurable outcome and a target to it, along with a strategic action plan. That's where the accountability comes in for all of the leaders who are supposed to help move that plan forward. And what we do with that is every year when we have State of the University address, we'll basically go back to the plan and we'll say, okay, here's what we said we wanted to do. Did we actually do it? And it lives within the accountability of that plan. The other piece is it will be tied to our fiscal year funding. And so a lot of the dollars that we are working with here at the university will tie to those efforts within the plan. So from accountability to the metrics that will be set in the plan, to making sure that we don't let the document die, that's going to be critical. I know that has come up, by the way, on this tour, is that, yeah, we've had a lot of different plans. And, I think hopefully the part of this plan is a lot of the information came from you. Not you directly, but the masses of folks that I'm talking to. So these were things that the university wanted to do, not me, right? Although I agree with everything people are saying in terms of what we need to focus on, but that voice inside of the plan, I hope, will allow it to breathe a little bit and not just be a dead document. The last piece I would mention there is our culture has to be right to accept the plan. So, we have to get into this mindset of a culture of accountability, a culture of assessment, a culture of an annual cycle of effectiveness. How we do that. It's got to live within our core values. We've got to start talking about that. Our core beliefs, who we are. I think we've got a bit of an identity crisis. So, all of those things happen. You can launch the plan, but you'll see what happens after that is we're going to do a lot of cultural work in terms of getting that plan into the lives of what's happening here at the institution so it can support that plan and sustain it. So it's not just we stand up a plan, everything is fine now. That's just the tip of the iceberg. That's very, those kind of plans die quick if you don't have what I just described, really backing it up after that.
Okay, and then for the provost, could you just, my usual question every month, where are we with enrollment for next year?
Thanks, Joe. I always expect your questions, so I have the data ready. And it's also something that I track literally every day, so it's no stranger. I'm glad to report that in terms of our first-time full-time freshmen, we are trending in the positive direction. Our applications are up 14%, and our admitted students are up 15%. So we have admitted 6,097 students, and this is 22 weeks out. And in terms of our graduate students, we are up by 11 applications. And so we have 1,341 applicants. In terms of admitted students, we have admitted 266, and that is 7% higher than same time last year. In terms of transfer students, our off-campus students are trending in the positive direction. Our applications are up 19% and our admissions are up 12.6%. So we've admitted 143 students. Most of this surge is coming from the completely online programs, not so much from our sites, the physical sites that we have off campus. There we are not doing as well, but in the online, completely online programs. The area that we had the most challenge, but we have been sort of really chipping away at that challenge, is our on-campus transfer numbers. So in terms of our on-campus transfer numbers, our applications are down 1.3%. This 1.3 was in double digits a few weeks ago. So it's still negative, but it's 1.3%, and that is 1,492 applications. In terms of admissions, we have 841 admitted, and that's about 7.4% lower than this time last year. But even that 7% was double digits a few weeks ago. So we are focusing, as much effort as possible on the transfer students and trying to improve those numbers as much as possible. And then in terms of our admitted students, we have the 6,097 students. We're working very hard to yield these students. So typically our yield rate is 23%. The national average is 30%. A few years ago, we were at 27%. So we know that there is work that we can do to yield. And every week we have a weekly meeting of enrollment management, all the recruitment retention coordinators, admissions, and all. We meet and talk about all best practices and sharing those, and also holding some yield events with alumni support. And so, we're doing everything possible, and we appreciate all the help that faculty are giving in terms of making calls to students, writing postcards, and so on to these admitted students. So that's my update.
Can I add to that last piece? The provost just mentioned, I think it's good for this group to know many universities, as you're reading about, are posturing and trying to talk about fall plans. And it's no secret we're doing the same, but they're doing it too because a lot of parents and students are trying to decide what's going to happen next for their students, whether they're coming or whether they're going to stay at home. So we're in a very delicate position, as the provost mentioned. We're in a yielding position. This is yielding season. How do we get that yield rate up to a number where we really are excited about it? But a lot of students want to know, are you going to be here for the fall or not? And we came out, I think the timing was perfect because you saw others come out too and you knew what they were doing. But I just wanted to make sure for this group, because we have a lot of faculty that are going to help us with this yield effort that's out there. They've been very open to coming forward and helping us really capture some of the students' attention so we can get them to sign with us here before August. But I wanted to throw out there is a bit of a chess game being played out there among universities. So I'm confident that we're in that game too, but we're still being safe and we're being smart and watching what's happening around us. But we are trying to signal that we are going to be at least open. And that's really what folks want to know, from our housing contracts to our new student orientation, sign-ups, all of those things we're closely monitoring, because we could lose some of that percentage that the provost just talked about if we're not pretty savvy about making sure that they know we're here. Just wanted to add that.
Thank you, sir. Jacob, do you have a question?
Thanks. Yeah, I also have a question for the chancellor and one for the provost as well. The question for the chancellor is basically, will that strategic plan include a plan for addressing salary inequity? I know that you resolved that in the last couple of years at your previous institution. Perhaps there's lessons that you've taken in looking at SIU. Is that something we can expect to see before the end of the semester?
Yeah, I think where I'm seeing that shape up, Jacob, and thanks for your question, is within the pillar of diversity, equity, and inclusion. I see that if I'm signaling kind of what one of the pillars almost will definitely probably be, that's one of them. And if we look at the equity piece, we get into more of the salary, internal equity. We get into you know, where we have our folks that are here. And so I do see that as being a key part to us trying to address and tackle some of those issues that we have. And by the way, on the tour, that's come up at probably every meeting. So just not even with just faculty, with staff, and it's come up over and over again. So it will definitely be something. That's a good example of what, you know, when that voice comes out, it's something that you can't ignore, and it will be something that we have to plan for. Just throwing this out very quickly, we had our Senate hearing the other day with our senators and other legislators that were out there. And that was one of the things we actually mentioned is how far below we were in some areas here on our campus. We highlighted Carbondale with the lack of raises. You know, there's 3%, I think, that's built into that budget. We build it in every year. Sometimes, I don't want to say they ignore it, but we do try to get it in there every year. We're trying again this year to just make sure they're aware of some of the salary issues that we're having here that we're going to have to address. So yeah, that'll be in there.
Thanks. And I did want to ask the provost too, and this is a very uncomfortable question to ask, but I think it's a pretty vital one that's come up from the budget report, and one that I think many faculty have been afraid of addressing, asking openly, and it has to do with administrator salaries. At the last meeting, the chancellor announced that there wouldn't be no administrative salary raises next year. I think that says a lot. But, you know, one of the things that we found is that in the last, 10 years, there have been frequent raises for administrators, often not huge, sometimes bumps every year. But in some cases, there have been fairly dramatic increases. And I know in your case, the last provost that wasn't acting or interim, the salary was around $235,000. In our budget report, we had data up to fiscal year 20, and it showed that your salary position had jumped by about 12%. And then in the 2001 fiscal year salary data that just came out, it showed another $14,000 increase. So I was just wondering, and I think, as a leader at this university, I'm asking you, how do you justify that? And do you think that's fair? One thing the chancellor mentioned at the Budget and Planning Committee was that he was considering voluntary faculty or administrative furloughs. Might you consider that as perhaps as an example to other administrators, or possibly even a salary reduction if yeah, so I'm curious to know. Thank you.
Yeah, so the context for any salary, so before I give a personal justification, I would say anytime you're looking at a salary, you're looking at not just the salary in isolation. There's a context. You look across universities, you look at salaries, because that's the kind of going rate, because the person doesn't have to be at this university. Like every day I get recruiters reaching out to me, asking me if I'll apply for positions. They make phone calls. They're always like asking, to move to another university, literally every day. So I'm just saying that that's a context. So for any administrator, you're looking at what is the rate across to keep somebody. What is the rate? That's one thing. Then the other thing is to look at the rate salaries of people who report to you. So would you want to have somebody who is reporting to you make more than you do? So that's the other context. So those are the variables that and then you look at what was the rate for somebody 3 years ago and what's the rate today. Because these positions are not fun positions. They're very difficult, very stressful, and nobody really wants to do those positions. So when somebody is in that position, what does it take to keep that person? And what is a fair salary? So those are the variables. And then the person who is hiring you or keeping you or making or raising, giving the raise has to make that decision.
So thank you. Sure, I definitely need to respond, but yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Amber, I'm trying to get to Amber's, I'm so sorry, but Amber, you're looking for 314? Do you want to go ahead and see who that is?
It's the person there's no picture and there's nothing but a telephone number. For the sake of keeping track of attendance of members, I was just asking who that was. I sent it out by chat. Apparently they're not hearing.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to pause and see if we wanted to ask them to say hello or, yeah, I just want to help. I wanted to help you out.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. Sorry, Jacob. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I just
that's okay.
saw Amber's note. I thought, uh-oh, after what we've been dealing with. I thought,
Well,
Yeah.
since it's
oh,
an
no.
open meeting-
In
well,
light
since
of
it's
what
an
happened
open
the other
meeting,
time-
it could be,
in
I was
light-
just gonna, there,
Go ahead.
Could be anybody. I just wanted to say, we got a few members who, some have sent in proxies and some haven't. I was just trying to see if that was
Well,
one of the proxies.
If the person is not confirming, we should be, careful. I think we should do something about it in light of what happened the other time.
it is an open meeting.
Well, the
We have
person
to keep
has
that in mind.
the person has to
Actually,
acknowledge.
the meeting was only provided to faculty, senate members, and specific guests. Everybody else is viewing on YouTube
Zooming.
Live.
Yeah,
I think it's
YouTube.
I think it's our responsibility to be present and to answer if we are asked for our identity. If the person is not there, why should we continue to risk it?
So the phone person that is at 314-359-5419, please respond with who you are, so we know who's there.
Carol can probably remove them.
I was about to say, if not, Carol, could you remove that person?
Yes, I can do that. Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you.
Okay, so we're back to the provost and Jacob and the discussion that was going there.
Yeah, I mean, I think, unfortunately, I don't remember the precise contours of your answer, especially after this lengthy detour, but it did strike me a number of the things you said are very logical.
Mhm.
They sound fair. They are not implemented when it comes to faculty. So what you said sounds great. I think that should be the model for approaching salary for faculty and all staff as well.
So Jacob, in terms of like hiring faculty, we are hiring right now. And that is the same market that we are dealing with. So when we offer somebody, they have other offers and they will come back and say, okay, I'm sorry, I'll turn it down, I'm going somewhere else. And so if we are really keen on keeping them, we make that adjustment. We make that offer. So what someone is being offered for fall 21,
Mm-hmm.
and if in the same field we had hired 5 years ago, that person would have been offered something different depending on what the market rate is, whom you're competing against. And so that is a variable that we do. Sometimes we have faculty who want to leave for another position. We make a counter offer if you want to keep that person, and we pay that rate that the other university is paying because that is the market rate. And we see inequity across disciplines. In one discipline, 70,000 may be the average. Another discipline, it may be 100,000. So we see these depending on the disciplines. And so there is no like one rate for a faculty member. It depends on the discipline and it depends on what year it is. So those are the logical factors that determine a person's salary and what they're worth.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Eugene, you have a question?
Yes, okay. My question has two parts. Part one about the strategic planning. Part two is about the budget follow-up or update. So perhaps Chancellor Nan, could you give us some update about how you will align the SIU system strategic plan with our campus strategic plan? I know that I represent the faculty senator, get involved in the system strategic plan, and a few colleagues on this here are also involved. So I'm just curious, how will you align the campus strategic plan with the system strategic plan? And when I think, as you know, that it involved for the campus system plan involved academic success, and diversity, community impact, research, and faculty and staff, and the infrastructure. So that's part one of the question. Part two of the question, I'm just curious about the update of the budget based on the enrollment and state budget. So let's say, think about fiscal year 2023, 2022, 2023. So how would that affect the faculty hiring in the future, especially stability of faculty members? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Lee. We have been almost tied to the hip with the system planning. As you know, I've said it publicly, our priorities are going to align very closely with the 6 or so areas that you just talked about. Actually, some may sound even identical in some areas. And so we're touching on the same broad topics. That's going to be important. But as Joe was mentioning earlier, though, but we got to take it a step further, because while we will align, our metrics may be a little different, right? Because the metrics and the work happens here on the campus, right? And so as we look at our outcomes, as we look at our targets, we've got baselines that are here. And those baselines obviously are going to help reach what the system is trying to accomplish as a whole in some of those areas. So we'll be very complementary to what the system is trying to achieve overall. I think it's going to align pretty well. So that is something that is critical going forward. As it relates to the budget, we have been doing a number of different things right now to squeeze the budget, is what I call it. Not sweep, I'll make sure I'm clear, but to squeeze every ounce, a dollar we can get out of the budget. So when I talk about the reduction in the tuition waivers, enrollment looks good, but if you're giving it all away in tuition waivers, that number can be 14,000 students. But if you're giving it all away, you're not generating tuition revenue. So that's been our model here, which we are going away from. We hope our Saluki commitment and other sources of dollars that may be out there are going to help those students. And so we're not waiving all the tuition. When we can do that successfully, we have a better bottom line to our budget, because our revenue can actually not look so bad, right, when we're doing that. Positions have not been automatic rehires from the staff and or administrative ranks. So we have not automatically, just when positions become open in those ranks, just automatically hire. And I know it's been a little painful for some of the cabinet members, but we have a process that we follow where, they do have to make a case for that position, whether or not we need it anymore. And to Jacob's point, when we hire, that's under a structure using data from Coupa and other sources, and staying within our ranges. So, we're not trying to go over and above too much. It's got to fit within that range of what we can afford. So, we've got to strike a nice balance there, and not have any of the offers that go out just be well over and above, numbers that we can't afford. So we're being careful with that. The legislative session is in play right now. The governor came out a couple of weeks ago and gave us the impression that the budget would be flat. That's our hope. We talked to our legislators. They hope the same thing too, but we're not out of the water there yet. So it's still a little too early to tell what that will look like in terms of our state appropriations and the amount we receive from state appropriations. But we're watching the tuition revenue very closely. Those are the two big pockets that I look at all the time: is state appropriations, tuition revenue. And that determines what we can do with anything related to hires. I think you mentioned that with hires. We made a decision to keep any open or retired faculty are retiring or resigning. Thanks to this group, we made the decision then to leave that retired or open position with the deans. And they've got to work with the provost to make sure they can justify keeping that slot there, but really wanting the dean to work with his or her faculty members there to really try and make sure that the need is met. That may be another pillar too, after the academic reorganization, is just looking at what we look like now. And I know we can talk forever about that, and we're working through that now, but a little too early to tell. Again, enrollment, it looks pretty good now, but it is way too early right now to determine that. We've got to yield a lot from those applications that we're getting in. So I want to be careful and throwing out the enrollment is looking great, really great. I mean, it is looking good right now, but we've got to close the deal with those students between now and August. So that will determine greatly what our budget looks like in that regard.
Thank you.
Melissa, you got a question?
Yeah, I do. I was going to shift gears a little bit and ask about some of those de-stressing activities that we were going to have planned for students since we kind of pulled spring break. I haven't heard about them. I don't know how to share with them as to what's happening. And so I just wondered if somebody could tell me what's going on with them and how can we help them, because it's feeling pretty long right now.
Yeah, I just responded, and I'll the provost chime in, but I responded to a student actually yesterday about that. And this week is supposed to be the week to really give students the opportunity to branch out a little bit. And it's Saluki Spirit Week. And we probably hadn't done a great job of advertising that, but it's out there. I had to look myself as well. And a lot of those activities are they're evening activities. Some are during the day, but they're activities that were designed to really create kind of a relaxing opportunity for our students. When we started out with the No Spring Break, we were hoping that since we started a week later, that 1 week there would kind of give them the opportunity to stay home a little longer and relax and not feel like the semester was so long, because we got them back here really the last week in January, January 19th. And so, if you think about January 19th to now, we were hoping that it wouldn't be too hard on them or our faculty. Can't forget about you guys, because we know that's a long semester going forward. But we ran into a bit of a hiccup, and Mira, hats off to her on this one. We had to be careful about our days of instruction. Mira, you want to talk a little bit about just as we time this out to make sure we still get our instructional piece worked through without having commencement. But Mira, you want to add to that?
Yeah, just briefly that this is the week that we're having the Spirit Week. There was a message that went out through SIU today. The students are being informed directly through, this is being organized through the Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs. And so there's an Office of Student Engagement that does all of this. And so they are in touch with the RSOs and different organizations and students. So that's the area of responsibility. And there was a message that went out through SIU today. So in terms of like the planning of the spring semester, we had started a week later. And so that we would keep the students and everyone together without a break, and had planned for activities this week, giving them a little more time to sort of decompress from the prior semester. So that was the logic of starting a week later.
Yeah, we didn't too, Mira, Melissa, there was a little concern, because at first we said, hey, we're going to see if we can require that students take that time off, and I think we were worried that it would be really hard to tell you or tell half of you, hey, let your students go, during the day to this event, give them time off, and then other faculty saying, no, I need that day, right? Like, you're going to mess up my weeks of instruction. So we almost made a mistake there, I think, because we were going to try and do that, and I'm really glad now we backed off of that. And because of feedback, and we said, okay, no, we better just no spring break, but let's have activities, as Mira pointed out, Melissa, through our student affairs area, to really get students the opportunity to, to have a little bit of a release.
Yeah, to the Chancellor's point, there was some discussion at one point that we have a few days off during this week. But the concern was that which day would you pick? If I teach Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you pick a Monday, then I'll be put behind. And if I teach Tuesday, Thursday, and you pick Tuesday, then I'll have to make up that material. And so we decided not to give any days off, but just to sprinkle the activities throughout the day. and evening so that students can, and staff and faculty can pick some event.
Hey, Jennifer, you got a question?
I do. It's more of a comment. I wanted to go back to what the provost said earlier about the salaries, and when you are looking for new faculty for filling positions, that we're wanting to make sure that the salary is very equitable and fair. And sometimes we get the back and forth with, we're not going to come unless we get a certain salary. I'd just like to request, I guess, as we move forward, that we kind of think about diversifying that idea and having it go for faculty that have been dedicated and quality for a number of years here at this fine institution. And so just something to keep in mind. We have a lot of great people here. And so you want to encourage them to stay. And so that's something that I just wanted to bring up to the group. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Matt?
Yes, thanks. I had a question for the Chancellor. When he said that they are signaling to prospective students that will be open in the fall, does that mean faculty and staff are back in their offices and students are back in the classroom on a more or less back to normal? Does that mean activities like homecoming weekend will be up and running? I guess just more clarification on what open means.
Yeah, that's a great question, Matt. That is what it looks like, not only for us, but most universities, definitely in this state. I'll give you just an example. The governor here shortly will talk about moving us closer to phase 5. Phase 5 is a complete restore. And I think there are going to be some caveats in there with what that, hey, let's go to 5, but let's be careful. But it looks like right now, given the positivity rates being pretty low, the vaccinations becoming more and more available, obviously we have testing that's still going to be free. We still have people encouraged to wear their masks. But what I was shocked about in seeing the CDC guidelines the other day was, even those of us, if you have had your shots and I've had mine, we can actually converse without a mask now. I mean, it was like, wow, it really maybe is coming or getting better. And so the idea is that, we would always be cautiously optimistic. I've said this publicly, just be careful. We don't want to go too fast, too far, too fast. But the idea, if we have to plan right now for the good of our students, faculty, staff, parents, that we would try and be as open as we can be, knowing that if something changes, we'll go right back into safety mode like we are this spring. And it would not be, we wouldn't blink an eye to go back and do that if something were happening there. So that seems to be where the way it's shaping up, is that our fall would be about as normal as we could have it, because those restrictions are starting to come down. You mentioned homecoming. That's an event that has to be planned well in advance too. So when we start thinking about, again, if the restrictions are lowered, we would do that. Our test run is going to be commencement. We're having the outdoor commencement in Saluki Stadium over 3 days. Really gives us a chance to kind of work through some of these things that are going to open up for most colleges and universities. More and more announcing every day. Matter of fact, I can't find one that has announced they're staying the way they are right now. The ones that I have checked in with are all trying to be, full steam ahead in the fall. And it's just because of what's happening, I think, right now. The last piece is you heard about maybe the possibility of vaccinations being available to 18-year-olds or 16, 18-year-olds, May 1. If the timing works with that, I think it would be helpful too, because you've got more of a category of citizens, younger citizens, that are going to be able to get vaccinations. So it may all play the way we want it to, but if not, we will go right back to where we were and stay as safe as we can.
Okay, I think our last comment before we let y'all have your closing comments is from Trish. Trish, you got a question or comment?
Thank you. Yes, I do. I'm the proxy for Jenny Brobst from the School of Law. And this is a question either for the Chancellor or the Provost. And it's building on the themes that we're seeing in the chat right now and also in Jennifer's comment about salary compression issues. My specific question is, if I heard the Chancellor correctly, you all are not sweeping positions once somebody has retired or left. And my question is whether you would by chance allow deans to use that salary money, instead of hiring to address salary compression issues.
Yeah, I'll let me answer that, and thanks for that, Trish. On the first side of that, we got that from great feedback from the faculty here. First off, our provost can't cut anymore. Okay, she about as cut to the bone as we can possibly cut. So these sweeping 6% across the board stuff, we're not going to be able to sustain that. We had to go into that as kind of an emergency mode. But going forward, we thought that the positions that come available, faculty positions that come available in those areas, that the dean would be able to decide what to do with those positions, whether to rehire, whether to hold those positions a little bit until there is justification for the position, but to have some discretion to be able to do that. Meanwhile, myself, the provost, and Judy will be looking for other sources of funding for areas that, let's say, they're not growing, or they don't have the ability to have all the retirements in those positions. And we're trying to carve out some dollars to be able to help the departments or divisions of schools with their hires if there's a need for that hire. And so we're trying to look at pots to create that. On the second part of the question, you know, I think it's just smarter if before we jump into the what do we do with the positions that are there and where's the salary compression? Right now, it's all over the board. It really is a complete mess. And so that's why I have said to our folks, we won't do any one-offs. The one-offs have to stop because the one-offs are getting us further and further into this salary compression problem that we're having. Jennifer pointed it out quite nicely with just, you know, what do we do with the folks that are here? You know, I know we're trying to attract people, but then it sends a sort of a different message for the ones who've been here 20 plus years, 10 years, 2 years. So we got to be careful. So Jacob did some real good work on at least showing what the overall picture looks like. We're going to back up that work with doing a salary study or survey ourselves. Judy is working on that now. I'll be able to give you an update on what we look like as compared to each other. And then we'll look at how we compare to other similar doctoral peer research universities so we can really get a sense of where everyone is and how we compare to each other. We do have some equity issues as it relates even to gender. There's some real issues there in terms of pay. There's issues in titles. We've got a lot of issues that we just have to hammer out. So I'd probably say if you give us some time to work through those issues first, I think we could come back and give a better answer about, you know, okay, here's what the first step will be now that we have the data that tells us where the issues and the holes are. I just don't want us to get further into a problem with compression because we have it. And then add on the lack of raises and things over the years. It's a little messy.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Chancellor, any additional comments you'd like to share that may not have got asked?
After all that, no. I'm joking. I'm joking.
Mira, do you have anything?
None.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, as always, we appreciate y'all being available and talking and answering the questions. And we're always happy to see y'all here and look forward to y'all's responses to the questions. So as we move back to the agenda and looking at the next phase, we're going to talk about the reorganization resolutions. I know we do have some guests here for some of these, so we're going to talk about them basically in the order that they are in the agenda. And so the first one we have is the resolution looking at the merging of anthropology, political science, and sociology. And I think Amber and who was with you on there? And one of y'all want to take it and give a quick overview of this one?
Robin, did you want to do that or do you want me to?
You can go ahead if you want, if you're all set for it.
It doesn't matter to me. Okay, well, I wasn't prepared to go first. Sorry, I probably missed that. So what we have is a resolution to reject the RME on the basis that all of the faculty in all three departments are opposed. In fact, rather vehemently opposed in most cases, to the point where they're not showing up to even vote on the issue. So they had some, if I can find it now, had some problems that it would interfere with retention of faculty, retention of graduate students, and getting graduate students. The bottom, even the FS sent a document that they suggested strongly that we consider the faculty's wishes and reject this RME. So let me pull it up and read the actual, there's a review available. I wrote the review, Robin took the review, he went over that, and then he wrote the resolution, and then I went over that. We kind of went back and forth. All right, so the resolution says, whereas the rationale is to create a more efficient administrative structure, increase faculty collaboration, and facilitate research efforts. Thank you, Marcus. Highlight programs for students and increase enrollment and retention. And whereas all three units, however, expressed extreme opposition, as evidenced by departmental votes, numerous communications, and I've read these. I read everything that was provided to me by the APAP's office with the RME. They were very, very open about providing this information. Whereas all affected units stated the departments are incongruous fits that are not housed in similar school structures at peer institutions, and whereas anthropology views a better fit merger would be with the linguistics department and the Department of Languages, Culture, and National Trade, on which Jacob can comment probably. Whereas the units expect negative effects of the merger on graduate student enrollment and loss of faculty, therefore be it resolved that the Faculty Senate recommends rejection of the RME to create a School of Anthropology, Political Science, and Sociology by merging the departments of Anthropology, the Department of Political Science, and the Department of Sociology. And I have seen that Tobin Grant and William Danaher both are here. I did not see Dr. Welch, Paul Welch from Anthropology. Has he come in, Dr. Welch?
This is coming out of a special committee, so we'll open it up to discussion. And we do have some representatives, as Amber mentioned, from the a couple of the departments here. So we open up discussion on this one to the Faculty Senate. So the recommendation from the special committee that is coming before the Faculty Senate is rejection of the RME. So open it up for discussion.
Well, you want to let Dr. Danaher and Dr. Grant speak. They've got 3 to 5 minutes if they so desire to
sure
comment on this.
Sure, I'll go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Tobin. As Amber Pond said, no faculty voted in favor of this reorganization. And there were 3 main reasons. I'll just make them short today, summarize them. First, it gets rid of chairs, an important conduit between the administration and faculty. And then the faculty found that the role of the directors in any kind of new school was very unclear. The RME said may have directors, and so faculty was concerned about this. And then finally, they thought that calling departments units waters them down and threatens our graduate programs. So, you know, in sum, that was their main concerns. So thank you. The directors, again, any kind of new school was very.
So, Tobin, did you have some additional comments?
Yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to provide a little bit of context. So one of the things that you'll see is that we have some abstentions throughout this. When the reorganization discussion started several years ago, I think it's important to point out that political science played ball. We had a program within our department, a very healthy program with the Masters of Public Administration. I worked with the Dean of our College of Business and helped negotiate a move so that they were over in College of Business Administration, or Analytics, excuse me. And that was supported by all the remaining faculty in political science. And so it's not that our department has ever been against reorganization wholesale, okay? But I think that one of the things that you can see is that we didn't have faculty who bothered this time to submit comments. There wasn't things in meetings. I would describe our faculty being in a state of just resignation. They just do not see that there's any confidence in their opinion in this process, and that their voice doesn't matter. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily my opinion. It's certainly not, I think, intentional on the part of the administration, but that's certainly the morale in the department. And they look forward, and we've already started discussing in the next several years, seeing how these mergers have gone forward in departments where things are supported by faculty is very troubling. We expect to be derailed with operating papers and other things that are going to take our eye off the ball of recruitment and retention and research over the next few years, and see a real hurt to the graduate program and research. And so I think and I asked the faculty if they wanted to present, and the response was if they wanted to present instead of me, and the response was simply, why bother? And so I'm here just to kind of relay their resignation, that they expect that the Senate will vote to shoot this down, and then it'll move forward regardless.
Paul was here for a second, but I guess he's left. He must have lost his connection. But so if he comes back in a few minutes, we can get comments from him. Are there any questions from the senators or comments on discussing the resolution from the senators on this? I'm seeing none. So go ahead, Joe.
I guess I asked this question in clarification because I'm in another social science on the same floor as my colleagues in sociology, anthropology, and political science. I have a colleague at another Illinois public university that I went to grad school with, who's a much smaller university. It's Governor State, and Governor State is only 5,000 or 6,000 students. As far as I'm aware, has no doctoral programs, has very little master's programs. And the way they're organized, and the way these smaller colleges are tended to be organized, is you have a Department of Social Science. But that's not something that I think is ever at a Research One university. And so is that something that your faculty have talked about in their discussions about this reorg proposal, that it's just, you know, unfair to lump all the social sciences effectively into one giant school and not recognize that there are significant differences in methodological approaches, significant differences in how you publish, how you do scholarship, how you teach even. across what looks like from the outsider to be very similar subjects, but actually aren't.
Yeah, I'll just report that, yeah, the faculty have mentioned that quite a bit in political science. The best way to put it is that there's two ways of thinking about it. One is schools that have combined departments like this are by and large, at best, master's level institutions and rarely have PhD programs. And so there's a sense of identity, I think, with that they see this as a symbol of why would someone apply to here. I tend to view it more as resignation that, and this is just my opinion, that the university this reorganization is signaling where our university is, and that I would be very surprised if I don't think it's the reorganization that's going to cause this, but the reorganization signals the amount of faculty that we have for a doctoral research institution. Just to give one example, when I came here 20 years ago, I was one of 5 new faculty in my department. And currently we have 7 total, or kind of mean 8. And sociology is in a similar place. And so you just don't find this where, yeah, it just doesn't exist at an R1 or, whatever the one under that, even an R2 institution. This is the kind of program. Now, if it were just an administrative thing, like with, for example, this could have been done with an associate dean position to handle administrative things and then keep departments. But yeah, that's that. But all I'll say is that that is the view of the faculty, and they've tried to voice that over the past few years, and that position was not accepted as part of this program. And what makes it frustrating, I think, too, for faculty, if I may, is whenever we see things like English remains essentially a department, and that you don't see an RME for other programs like multiculturalism or something that don't have doctoral programs that are going to be their own schools. So there's inconsistency, and so it's hard for the faculty to figure out what the rationale is. And so even though there is rationale there, they don't feel like their voice is heard, and so that's why they've opted out of a lot of the discussion on this. And that there are significant differences here. Like, for example, I have a courtesy appointment in sociology. I get along fine there, but we have other faculty that look at conflicts between nation states. That's not something that's not there. That's not anthropology. It's not sociology. There's things that anthropology does that are just far afield from the other things. And so, it's a real concern. The primary concern, I will say, is with the doctoral programs and the research. I mean, that's really the focus of the concerns from the faculty.
Yeah, I have to agree with Tobin. The problem with sociology is a discipline, and the idea that departments aren't important. In the discipline of sociology, when you call a department a unit, like I said before, people are really worried about it watering down our importance in the eyes of our peers. I noticed on the RME, it said, one of the peers who did this was NC State. I went to NC State and they have a department of sociology. I agree with Tobin, the PhD program, the graduate program, and, attracting good students who don't feel like if they come here, they might not get their degree because we can tell them that our graduate program is not going to disappear. But if suddenly they see that it's changed from department to unit, that is not going to give them much confidence. So thank you, Joe.
Any other comments from the Senate?
Dr. Welch is here. Mark, because we didn't see him earlier.
Okay, Paul, if you take just a short brief, we're probably gone along on this and quite a while already. So go ahead, Paul, just very quickly.
Thank you. So are any one of these three departments going to form their own schools? Do they have any plans? If yes, then one comment or suggestion would be to have some solid kind of like rationale for forming these new schools. But what I see is like currently when we review these RMEs, the meat is not there. So essentially just bumping up the departments to school, you need to have some solid rationale. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
And just to add to what Farhan just said, we have seen several faculty-driven proposals that have come through in the last year or so based on units that didn't like what they had seen originally, and we haven't seen any faculty-driven ones from these three units as of yet. So that. I think that's a little bit of a concern.
Just to be clear, just because you don't have it here doesn't mean that there weren't discussions that were had between and meetings or discussions between the chairs. It's just that the message was given that this is the way that it was going to move forward. And so the faculty didn't bother moving forward. They had considered other proposals and working on them, but I'm just passing along that the faculty, the reason you don't have it there is that the faculty, where it was communicated that this is the way it was going to be.
Yes, in fact, we were told that quite directly by Associate Provost Olala in a meeting with the chairs and the provosts.
Any other comments, sir?
Yeah, very briefly, the position of anthropology throughout this over years now has been that the entire reorganization, with a few exceptions where programs and departments actually did want to reorganize, this reorganization was a solution for a problem that was never shown to exist in the first place. There have been various rationales proposed over the years, one by one, as they were brought forth. They were shown to be lacking in evidence or false. The rationale kept shifting, even though the reorganization kept shape. The most recent version of a rationale is that the reorganization will increase administrative efficiency. Since this is a relatively recent claim, it obviously is not why the reorganization was proposed in the first place. Increasing administrative efficiency is always a good idea, but there has been no evidence presented by the administration that this is a problem now, or that the reorganization would solve the problem now. I think many of us believe there may be a problem with administrative efficiency, but most of us would say that that problem is primarily in Anthony Hall, not in the individual colleges and departments. In regard to the claim that you've heard from several of the chairs now, that we are greatly concerned that changing to a program would negatively affect recruitment and retention of graduate students. The current version of the RME says, well, other universities are doing it. This is what I refer to as the 10th limbing proposal. Just because others are doing it doesn't mean it's a good idea. Is there evidence at these other universities that have done it that changing a department to a program has increased enrollments or decreased enrollments? Without such evidence, the assertion that it will be neutral is void, lacking in evidence. And I would also add that pushing through a reorganization of an entire university as a series of reasonable and moderate extensions is deceptive in the first place. The goal was always a complete reorganization of the university. Doing it as reasonable and moderate extensions is kind of like saying, well, there's no difference between walking across a continent and going out for a short stroll. We're only doing it one step at a time. Or changing a living tree into a pile of matchsticks is, well, we're only doing it one matchstick at a time, so that's a reasonable and moderate extension. So one of the things I think you can hear quite clearly is that there's a great deal of frustration amongst faculty in our three departments as well as elsewhere on the university, that the reorganization has been imposed upon us against our will. It has generated considerable antagonism between faculty and administration, needlessly, we would say. And it has had a tremendously negative effect on morale. My department has had 2 people retire very abruptly, retire or resign because they're just sick and tired of it here. This is, we just don't want to do this, and we don't see any reason why we should do this.
Okay. And I want to make sure we keep the focus here. We're on this resolution, which is a specific resolution about merging these 3 units. And I appreciate the comments about reorg in general, but this resolution is specific to these 3 units merging, and the reorg is something that we're in the middle of and have continued on. Eugene, do you have something that would add to this conversation that you'd like to add?
Yes. First of all, I support the input and the comments from the faculty just presented. And I have nothing to do with the units of anthropology, political science, and sociology, except I'm a faculty senator, and I strongly respect shared governance and a strong advocate of liberal arts and science education. That's point 1. Point 2, and if we think about the original four doctor programs started by the previous president, Knight Morris, and basically psychology is one of them, government department, which is now the political science, was one of them, then biology and speech communication. So what's the point? The point is that, okay, before I came here 5 or 6 years ago, anthropology, political science, and sociology are world known, nationally known. Now, faculty members left or are leaving. So this is a big challenge for us. So that's point 2. Number 3, I have been talking with the chancellor and a few colleagues. We need to do assessment for this reorganization. We have to think about data accountability. So therefore, I think it's time to think about assessment rather than doing reorganization, change for name per se. We have to think about what is financial benefits, what's the morale, and what's enrollment. If it does not help us, let us think about our approach. Thank you.
Okay, so is there any other additional discussion pertaining to this RME? Okay, so the RME has been brought from the special committee. The RME states that they recommend, the faculty senate recommends rejection of the RME. So we'll call it to a vote. All of those opposed to rejecting this RME, please, let's see, I got to figure out the best way to do this, because a yes vote means that you're accepting the RME as a rejection. Okay, so I'm going to ask for all those opposed first, that oppose rejecting this this RME. Please show with a sign of a hand, please. And you team, take down your raised hand, please, so that we can see if anybody puts a hand up that way. Okay, anybody opposed? I see none. Is there none? No one is saying anything. Okay. Anybody abstentions? Any abstentions? I see no extensions. Am I missing any? Okay, so this one is passed as a rejection of the RME. So we'll go to the next one in line, which is the School of Theater and Dance. And the School of Theater and Dance was handled by Jacob and Li Chang. So if one of you want to do a brief description and then we can move to a vote on this one too.
Jacob, you can do it.
Sure. Sort of ironically, this is one where the Department of Theater is proposing becoming the School of Theater and Dance. No change to degree programs or administrative structure, no significant cost increases or savings. The faculty support it. They, so the resolution is to pass it.
All right. So the resolution, just up on the screen, is to recommend approval of the RME to create a School of Theater and Dance. Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing there's no discussion, we'll call it to a vote. All those that oppose approving this RME, please show with a sign. I see no hands. Any abstentions? I see no abstentions, so this one passes. Okay, the next one that we have is the School of Forestry and Horticultural. And that one was done by Fern and Scott. And so if one of you want to take it, I see Fern's here. You want to take it and give a quick.
So this RME is to create. Sorry, say that again.
I said I'll put it on the screen for you.
Okay, thank you. So this RME is to create a School of Forestry and Horticulture, and which will be housed in the College of Agricultural Life and Physical Sciences. So school will have 2 degree programs, is Forestry and Horticulture, and will be led by a faculty member who's going to serve as the program director. And then basically these 2 programs, each one of these will be led by program coordinators. Let's see what else. So all degree programs associated with each of these existing departments will be transferred to the new school. And as for rationale, it is basically to increase enrollment, research productivity, and basically be more attractive for extramural funding. There will be no effect on faculty lines, no loss of tenure, and no negative impact on students. The proposed change will have no impact on the university's Carnegie status. However, this RME does not predict any cost savings, and there was a unanimous, almost unanimous support, although there were a few abstentions by both of these units. So given the strong faculty support, we recommend approval.
Is there any discussion on this RME? Seeing there's no discussion, then the vote on the floor is for the Faculty Senate to recommend approval of the creation of the School of Forestry and Horticultural. Is there any opposed to that? Seeing no opposed, are there any abstentions? Seeing no abstentions, and this one also passes. The next one we have is the merger of the ITech with the School of Computing, and Melissa and Patrick were the 2 team members that were assigned this one, and I will bring it up for you.
Patrick, did you want to go or?
Yes, I'm happy to. I'm trying to get to my document here, and Marcus has taken control of my screen somehow. Sorry about this. Okay, so the RME merges the information technology degree programs with the School of Computing. So it moves ITEC, information technology, from its current home in the School of Analytics, Finance, and Economics in the College of Business and Analytics to the School of Computing in the College of Engineering, Computing, Technology, and Mathematics. It's an administration-initiated plan. Faculty in the School of Analytics, Finance, and Economics voted 11-0 in support of the merger, and the voting was slightly more ambivalent, though still favorable towards the merger in the School of Computing. 3 faculty voted for the merger, 2 against, and 2 abstained. There will be no curricular impact, a possible positive impact on faculty research, no financial or faculty line impact. And then finally, the FA concludes that it sees no issues with this plan. So therefore, we are recommending approval of merging the iTech program with the School of Computing in the College of Engineering, Computing, Technology, and Mathematics.
Thank you, sir. Is there any discussion or comments on this resolution, which recommends approval of the merger of information technology with the School of Computing? Seeing there's no discussion, we'll call it to a vote. All those, is anybody opposed? Seeing no opposed, any abstentions? Seeing no abstentions, then this one is also moved to approval. So the last one we had was the School of Physics and Applied Physics, and this was Matt and Grant that did this one. So one of you want to take the overview, and I will get it on the screen for you.
Matt, do you have a preference?
Can you please go over it?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
Similarly, this one's, I think, straightforward as far as we are overall recommending the approval of this RME, even though it might be the languages, you know, we're saying we're abolishing the Department of Physics, but creating the School of Physics and Applied Physics in the College of Agricultural Life and Physical Sciences. There was unanimous, this is faculty driven, it was unanimously approved by faculty, the FA approved it as well. As you know, you've seen in some of the other proposals also, we do not see a negative impact in terms of recruitment, it's budget neutral, and some of the other items, of course, we have to check off on concerning the RME. So again, the resolution is to approve the creation of a School of Physics and Applied Physics.
Okay, is there any discussion on this resolution? Joe, do you have a comment?
Yeah, a comment, question possibly for the provost if she wishes to answer it. We're seeing a pattern here with some of these newer RMEs where they're getting smaller and smaller. This is a school of only 6 faculty, will be a school of only 6 faculty. And I think several of us are told that departments aren't going to be schools, but then we're seeing exceptions now being carved out where a sole department gets to be a school. So there are a couple comments, a couple observations I would like to make. One, I think it sends the message to the rest of us around the university that there is not a fair process here. When most of us are being told you have to find a merger partner, sometimes 2, sometimes 3, sometimes 4. So there is unwieldiness when it comes to what is a school, and then others get to have, oh, you can be a school because you're special, or for whatever reason. And so I don't really see how a department of 6 faculty can be viable as a standalone school, especially when the goal here is administrative efficiency, as was pointed out, and the goal here is to have less units around campus. So I'm just very. I don't want to be opposed to what the faculty support. And I think, I think we as Faculty Senate generally have a policy of supporting faculty, especially when faculty create their own proposals here. But I'm profoundly ambivalent about this one because I just don't see the viability of it. And I just also don't see the fairness and equity of it. compared to vis-a-vis other school proposals or that have gone through.
Thank you, Joe. Is any comment or discussion based on what Joe said to that or the resolution?
Can I
yes,
make a comment on Joe's, yeah?
Yes, go ahead.
So hi everyone, I'm Saikat Talapatra. I am in the physics department. So we are actually, if you come to think of it, we are more concerned about what impact we bring to the campus rather than the size. And, you know, full-time equivalent, we are 10 faculty. We would like to see our entity colleagues counted too. So that's one of the main reasons I wanted to answer back to Joe, that the numbers, the data is not correct. Now, I don't think that we are being treated as some kind of privileged department. We started working on the school proposal on 7th of March, 2019, because we saw the opportunity that what physics can become. If you look at our 8 years review, it's a public document you can ask from the provost office. External reviewers were amazed that how can a small department like this produce 6 NSF career awardees. Okay, College of Science has 14 NSF career awardees, out of which 8 are from chemistry and 6 are from physics. Historically, go take a look. We serve 1,200 students all across the campus, right? Look at any R1 university. They have a standalone physics and chemistry department. That's the backbone of a research university, which is a comprehensive university. So the point is, what impact our school will bring to this university. We have been trying to change the name of our department from physics to Department of Physics and Applied Physics. Why? Because in 2005, IBHE approved our PhD program in applied physics. As of today, we have 100% first destination jobs. Not a single program in the campus can do that. Okay. So the point is, we are not 6 faculty, we are not 7 faculty. We are a magnificent department, and that's why it is fair to give us a status of school of physics and applied physics. All right, now we will come to our scholarly activities. 3 things we look at: how many students we serve, what is our scholarly activity and creativity, and how much funded research we are bringing into the campus. We talk about research, there are different kinds of research. We believe in funded research. Our thrust is to get as many as federal research dollars as possible so that we can fund our undergraduate students in the lab, give a training as par with Urbana-Champaign. So yes, we need to have a school of physics and applied physics in our campus if we really want to compete.
Thank you, sir.
So I think that if you have any questions, just email it to me, saikat@siu.edu. And again, we are not getting any privileged treatment. That's the completely unfair statement.
I just want to clarify the RME, because I was one of the reviewers. I just looked at it. There was no mention made of the NTT faculty. So the voting record only had 6 votes, unanimous support. So that's where that number came from, just to clarify that.
Yeah, so that's
Thank you,
another
Matt.
thing, right? Because that's how our operating paper is written. So this will also give us a chance to change our operating paper. And that's we are struggling with that. So there are many good things that will happen.
Any other comments or discussion that we need on this one?
I just thought I'd say, in case it's not clear, I don't think physics needs to defend this RME whatsoever. I think many faculty and many other departments have also expressed a wish and arguments to maintain their autonomy. So I think we should all fully support physics. I think as we've rejected the previous RME for the merger of anthropology, socio, that's I think where we need to put our, to really dig in. But yeah, I don't think there's any reason to. So I don't think physics. I don't even think that was the intent of Joe's question. Is that physics somehow needs to defend why they get to be a school? I think many departments would support that general principle. So,
thank you, Jacob. Okay, hearing no further discussion, we'll call this to a vote, and the vote is to recommend approval of the School of Physics and Applied Physics. Any opposed, please show your sign. Seeing none opposed, any abstentions? I see one, Joe abstains and Yuting abstains. And so, and Matt abstains.
And Grant.
And Grant abstains, okay.
And Michelle.
And Michelle, thank you, Michelle. Did you get those, Amber and Josh? Okay.
Four
So this one passes
abstentions.
also? Okay, thank you. All right, so we will move now to the next thing on the agenda. And I do have a question about the agenda. UEPC, do you have any guests here today?
We do.
Okay, is there an issue if we move the UEPC forward so that we can let the guests depart if they need to, and maybe get out a few minutes before the rest of us? Okay, we will do so. So we'll move the UEPC up, and we'll start with the first one is to eliminate the BS in business economics.
Okay, so this caused us a lot of consternation on the UEPC because we had several competing points we wanted to address in the resolution. Thank you for bringing it up because I don't have access to my computer at the moment. Okay.
It's large, so I've got to scroll.
Yeah, just you want to scroll down. So we wanted to emphasize that the program was originally sunsetted back in 2017 or 18. I don't remember which year. When it was in a different, was it 18? Okay. When business economics and economics were in different colleges and they were different departments. Since then, because of reorganization, there is now just a school and they're in one school and everything is now in the College of Business and Analytics. As was explained to us by Dr. Sylvester, the IBHE, the administration tried to resuscitate the program, but was told by the IBHE that it had been sunsetted, and therefore the IBHE wasn't going to support us reopening a program again. So we wanted to make a couple points with this resolution. The committee wanted to make a couple points with the resolution. One was that there isn't an overall consensus, a large enough consensus in the departments affected. So if you look at the votes, very bare majority in favor, significant opposition, college level curriculum committee, which I think ought to be taken into consideration here because it's broader, it's beyond the unit, it's thinking about the broader college curriculum. They were only one person on that committee voted in favor, 4 against. So we wanted to emphasize that that there is there's some large degree of faculty opposition to this. We wanted to also support our colleagues over in economics, should they wish in the future to rebuild this program, because it sounded like it's now got a lot of potential. It's also nationally accredited, whereas the other program in economics isn't. And we wanted to, and the third point we wanted to make was that was sort of a similar point that Dr. Welch was making earlier, which was reasonable moderate extension may be a clunky way of proceeding and this, I know it's the method that's generally used for these things, but should there possibly be a time to maybe pause sometimes on these things rather than rush them through and get them through the process, especially when it's a very complex question like this one. So that's basically, I'm voicing what the committee thinks here. This is not what I think necessarily, it's what the mandate from our committee wanted us to have a 3-stage resolution, if you will. So there you go. I'm open. I'm happy to answer any questions.
And I think we got a comment from Lizette here.
Okay.
Yeah, this is an interesting one because the program has been put forth to IBHE as being eliminated. They will not, we can't bring the RMA forward in all honesty. Yeah. But because of our processes on campus, we were required to go through Article 9 and to go through an RME to eliminate. It is really just wrapping up the process of a decision that was made a while ago. I mean, I don't really understand what you expect me to be able to do.
No. I think we wanted actually to write this resolution to give you support for when we can. We wanted to, I think the target of the shared governance question is not you per se. It's actually, I think the committee felt that this university is being railroaded by the state IBHE.
I don't believe so. I believe that the decision.
We felt that as a committee, though. We felt like there's no shared governance going on here because we're being told we can't do something. And, and even though it makes.
I think the process is more that we didn't follow A9 before. I don't really think it has to do with railroading.
Okay.
The decision was made, it was put forth. In fact, it was in the sustainability plan way back when Randy Dunn was president, and that was brought forward to the BOT. It was in there that was one of the programs that we would be eliminating. That was communicated to IBHE. There was a reasonable attempt to try to, put it back on the books, but we were just simply told no. It's been on the low producing programs for too long.
Okay. Can I ask a clarifying question? Then I might help the faculty senate here. Yeah. How long does a program how long does it turn around? If we wanted to restore this program in the future, how many years would we have to wait as a campus?
It depends on how it was provided. Oh, I don't know that answer. To bring it back, it would take an NUI. But, in defense of IBHE, at the same time I requested to reopen business economic, we also requested to reopen MAT, the curriculum instruction program, or the teacher education program. We also asked to reinstate the biomedical engineering program, the ME in biomedical engineering. So some were approved, but this one was not because of whatever the decision was on how it was presented to IBHE before any of us were in these positions right now, before Mara was provost, before I was AP.
Sure. So this is not meant to be critical of you or of the provost or anybody. It was mainly, we were trying to voice that we support this program. We support economics. We think this could be a viable program. This could be a program that would actually increase students because it's got this accreditation attached to it. That we just, because of the way it happened in the past.
But in support of economics, we just really worked extremely diligently to get the NUI for econometrics put forward.
Sure, I know you did.
And that just got passed by IBHE, and that was a heavy lift.
That was a very heavy lift.
I'm looking at an artifact we're trying to clean up, and I'm just not there with you, Joe.
Okay, well, I'll have to talk to you privately about it. Why the committee?
I would like to.
Yes. Okay.
All right, seeing no additional discussion, the vote for this resolution to basically recommend approval of the RME. Any opposed? I see none. Any abstentions? I'm seeing none. So this one we will approve. The next one on the list is to move the specialization in electronic journalism from RTD to journalism.
So I'm going to actually combine this one with the next one, if that's okay, which is also to move a specialization in media industries. Yeah, from RTD to SOJ, because a lot of their reasoning is similar between the two. So these two schools, the School of Journalism and Radio, Television, and Digital Media, are integrating, and they're currently going through a process of updating curricula, reducing redundancies, and trying to bring in material that will reflect sort of new technologies in the field. When it comes down to these two specializations that are moving from RTD to SOJ, actually faculty from both SOJ and RTD will be teaching within those specializations, which gives the students a broader educational experience. There are current students in these specializations in RTD, and they will be taught out through RTD. In terms of affecting faculty, there's one non-tenure track faculty that will be moving from RTD to SOJ. And costs for these moves are minimal, and they'll be covered by a variety of funds, lab fees, the Larry Brown Media Management Lab Foundation funds, and the SOJ budget. So we have written to approve the RME, both of these RMEs, for moving these two specializations from RTD to SOJ. And Jan Thompson should still be here, hopefully, to answer questions about these two.
Are there any questions about these two RMEs? The first one is to move the specialization in electronic journalism, and the second one is to move the specialization in media industries, both from RTD to the School of Journalism.
I'd like to correct.
Go ahead, Jan.
There's actually a faculty member in each specialization, so there would be two that would move over.
Okay.
Thank you, Jan. All right, so we'll take these votes separately. The first one is the approval of moving the specialization in electronic journalism. Any opposed to that one? See no opposed. Any abstentions? See no abstentions. So that one's approved. And the second one is to move the specialization in media industries. Any opposed to that one? See no opposed. Any abstentions? So that one is approved. The next RME that the UEPC has is to eliminate the undergraduate certificate in journalism and mass communication.
So for this RME, I have basically three main points. One is that no certificates in journalism and mass communication have been conferred in years. All of the SOJ faculty support the removal of this certificate, and there are no real effects or anticipated costs that need to be made for students or faculty. So the RME is to approve the elimination of the certificate in journalism and mass communication. And Jan Thompson also can answer some questions. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Any questions for Jan on this one? Okay, seeing there's no question or discussion, we will take a vote on eliminating the undergraduate certificate in journalism and mass communication. Anybody opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that one is approved. And the next one is the RME to add an undergraduate certificate program in jazz and improvised studies.
So this RME to add an undergraduate certificate in jazz and improvised studies, there's been a lot of interest from students in the jazz discipline, and a certificate in jazz and improv will basically diversify the curriculum for the music majors, as well as give them the tools to teach this discipline, which they will most likely do during their careers. And there's no anticipated effect on faculty, staff, students, budget, or other programs. So it seems it's pretty cut and dry. So the RME is to approve the addition of an undergraduate certificate in jazz and improvisational studies. And Eric Lenz is here to answer questions as well.
Are there any questions on this resolution? All right, let's take a vote then on the Addition of the undergraduate certificate program in jazz and improvised studies. Anybody opposed to it? Seeing no opposed, any abstentions? Seeing no abstentions, that one passes too. And the last one from the UPC is to eliminate the BS in mining engineering.
Right, so for this RME, admission to the BS in mining engineering program was suspended in 2017. The program has fallen below IBH minimum requirements, and the ABET accreditation will lapse after August 15 of this year. There are no, excuse me, anticipated budget effects on faculty, students, or the programs. And there's one remaining student that will be taught out by this spring, summer. So spring, summer of 2021. So the RME is to approve the elimination of the BS in mining engineering.
Hey, Bethany, any discussion on this resolution? Seeing there's no discussion, let me take a vote on the resolution to eliminate the BS in mining engineering. All those opposed? Seeing none, all abstentions? Seeing none, this one passes. Thank you, UPC. Another big workload you had for this meeting also. So now we'll move back to our regular agenda and go to the executive committee report. Grant?
Yeah, very good. Thank you. So two things briefly. One is just a carryover from our conversation earlier with the RMEs. I think we're going to definitely need some guidance as we're moving forward with what is a school and to make sure that we're not setting up schools, programs in a vulnerable position. Meaning if we have schools that are being proposed that have maybe 24 students, and of course that doesn't meet IBHE standards for a program being viable, is that where we're setting programs up to be a lot more vulnerable than they really need to be. So we're going to need some guidance on that because we're starting to see a second round of RMEs, meaning programs that were originally placed in certain spots and that we're now seeing again because they found out that maybe that fit was not appropriate or not. But as we move forward, we may see a lot more people who do desire to be what was a former department into a new school. So that kind of guidance, I think, in terms of shared governance and figuring that out, I think will be incredibly helpful. Because as you just saw with some of these, faculty fully approve it, of course. FA does their rightful duty in saying that there's no harm in lines, and so they approve these RMEs. But as far as us potentially meddling in terms of numbers of students or some of these other variables as far as making sure a school can be successful, it's just not in the RME. So it has not been in our purview. The point being is we are able to help manage the RME process for reorganization, but we're going to need a lot of help with the leadership of that process. And I know it's a hot potato that nobody wants to touch because a lot of this began before a lot of us in terms of administrative roles were here. So just something to help us with on that. The second item does kind of reflect a little bit of what's going on with reorganization, and that will be our upcoming elections. So I've already reached out to our elections committee. I've heard back from a majority of them. Our goal is to present to Executive Council in the beginning of April some scenarios. None of those are ideal because the HR list of faculty that we are working with is kind of in midstream with our reorganization effort. So we're going to present some scenarios as far as what that might look like. The good news is Graduate Council, or maybe the bad news, I don't know. Graduate Council is in the same boat. And so we're going to have to work together in terms of how they're going to be figuring out their election process as well. So we'll have some joint efforts in doing so. Like I said, we'll be presenting some scenarios and options to Executive Committee in April, and then that'll be turned around rather quickly, of course, for our April 9th, I believe it is, Faculty Senate meeting to go forward with that. That will ideally give us enough time to get those elections done, to abide by our operating paper, to have all of that finished, that meaning the election by the end of April. So be looking forward to that. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Grant. Quick turnaround there. Okay, next we have Faculty Advisory Committee, Council to the IBHE. LeChain, you got any report from them?
Marcus, can I jump in and just ask a real question of Grant about the elections since it came up? So this will be the last year where elections will be held under the old colleges and the old departments, and then Is the intention that we
Well, and
reapportion our seats by next year?
No, the HR list that we have reflects where some of the RMEs that have been passed, where they've landed, where faculty have landed.
Okay.
And so that's where we're going to have to look at those scenarios. We do not have an accurate list of, if you're like saying that we're going to use the old focus, that's even further potential misrepresentation of
totally. It's totally gerrymandered and everything else. I'm just curious as to how we're going to solve this in the next month before we have elections.
We are going to do our best to come up with some scenarios as far as what those look like. None of those, I think, are necessarily ideal, but maybe hopefully some are lesser as far as an issue, because our issue than others. Our goal is to have appropriate representation of
Sure.
faculty.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for clarifying.
Grant, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Given that the time and schedule, and also we're still operating onto the same faculty senate opinion paper, what's the negative impact do we have if we stay with the current structure? And what would be the benefit we have if we move to a new structure with very limited, only a few weeks? I know last year, the election committee started the election process almost after spring break, and then the results were known in April. And I was elected as the faculty senate. I attended April's faculty senate meeting. Have you thought about the negative consequence of delaying this to think about the new process while we have a current structure? You might think, we cannot consider. What do you think? I'm just my comments,
Yeah, so that's an opportunity for our Committee on Elections to come up with those scenarios in terms of what you're talking about, Dr. Lee, with negative consequences. One could be a misrepresentation of a college, meaning that in the old structure, pre-reorganization, they might have, let's say, 8 representatives, right? I don't think there's any unit that has that. But let's say in the new structure that is currently existing with the RMEs that have been passed and have moved forward, that college would only have 4 representatives. So if we move forward with the old one, then we have kind of the wonkiness of maybe a misrepresentation of faculty because that unit is no longer as large or that college is no longer as large. Second, and just briefly, because I'll try to give these scenarios, and Dr. Lee, you are on executive committee, so you'll see these at the beginning of April with these scenarios. Second is, how do we track down faculty to basically vote appropriately for those structures? We have some units that are no longer intact as they were before. And so, let's say there's an opening, for example, Dr. Lee, you're in COLA. There's an opening in COLA. Well, that doesn't necessarily exist in its older form because there are a lot of units that have already left and have been approved to leave COLA. So we're going to play through those scenarios. I think it got so far for talking with our colleagues and other in graduate council that well, anyway, we want to have an election. We don't want to delay elections. We don't want to limit terms or the years of terms for those folks. So we'll come up with those scenarios and be able to present those at the beginning of April.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Li Ching, anything from IBHE?
Oh, yes. Faculty Advisory Council to IBHE met on last month, 19th. A few things I think are relevant to campus is one is a strategic plan. And there's a new version of the latest IBHE strategic plan report is on. And then I just checked the website. We'll provide a website. The website didn't work. And then I will go back to the committee and just ask what's going on. And then later on, I will relay to faculty senator again. In principle, there's 3 priorities. They are already determined by this plan. The first priority area is how do we increase post-secondary credential or degree attainment to develop the talent that drives Illinois economy. The second priority area that we're talking about, the close equity gaps. The third one is improve affordability, increase access, and manage costs. I think those 3 priorities probably will tie the strategic plan we are going to, our campus going to develop those things. The second issue they talk about is like COVID loss. IBHE invited Dr. Ryan Gower, the chancellor of Illinois Eastern Community College, talked about what they did in terms of responding to COVID challenges and also what issues they faced. And also IBHE is still participating with P20 group to discuss those issues. Hopefully I will bring the report back to campus very soon. And the third one talked about this, like about the cost of textbook for students. There's a state Senate bill is called SB 101. This is started from a suggestion from U of I about the textbook study. They said this kind of thing should be discussed by IBHE rather than by each individual universities. That's pretty much the bill. And then the IBHE faculty faculty advisory council invited 2 representatives from Association of American Publishers about how we can reduce the cost of a textbook for students and more of those things. There's a lot of questions going on being asked to these representatives in terms of some pros and cons and what the single fee, etc. There's quite a few discussions, but those are the issues talked about. And then I think I sense the most sensitive issues for community colleges, not us, like about the how about this dual credit hours, dual credit things. They were talking about the benefit and the downside of this like a dual credit offering, and also the cost of offering dual credit by the colleges, those type of things. Mainly issues. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Li Chang. Graduate Council, Tom was not able to make it today, but he just said that basically they had passed the resolutions. A couple we voted on, the one to eliminate the BS in Mine Engineering and the approval of the School of Theater and Dance, and that they had put the Anthropology, Political Science, and Sociology RME on hold for further discussion at a later meeting. So next we have Budget Committee. Jacob, anything you want to report on the town hall? Or?
Yeah, just real quick. The town hall, I think went pretty well. It's still available, the recording on the the SIU Chancellor YouTube site. I just looked, there were about 136 views. And I've definitely gotten, maybe the other committee members too, a good amount of thanks for what we've done and for bringing some of those issues into a public forum. I think a number of them people sort of talk about, certainly with each other, with colleagues in an informal setting, but to bring those really into an open forum, I think people were happy about. And obviously a number of them are still, things still we need to keep talking about. That might be it at the moment.
Well, we appreciate the committee's work on putting that town hall together. I think it went very well. And as you said, it's had a lot of views since, so that's good to know. Committee on committees. Yu-Tang, I don't know if y'all had any this time, did you?
Yeah, just one minor update with regard to the search for the Chief Information Officer and IT Director. And we resent the information to the Provost Office. Pretty much that's it, update. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Faculty status and welfare, Robin, do y'all have anything? Is Robin still here? He was here earlier.
Yeah, I'm still here. No report.
Okay. And then we have the governance committee. Li Chang, do you have anything from the governance committee?
Not particularly, just like update you on the revising operating papers, and the committee members were still in this discussion of how we are finalizing this revision of operating paper. Particular two issues related is one is the reduction of faculty members, and that counts for how many we need to have, what the faculty vote is acceptable as to a change of the operating paper. Another one, of course, is a drastic reorganization effort that will change what we define units and also the distribution of faculty numbers within each unit. But hopefully we will work out a resolution for us to prove. Thank you.
Thank you. Reorg, we've already covered that. We don't have anything additional there. Gary Kensel, you have an update on the research?
Sure. I just have a couple of quick things to mention that people should probably be aware of. First off, for anyone who has faculty in their programs that might be thinking about applying for a National Science Foundation career grant this summer, we will be having a workshop on writing those types of grants that will be hosted by the Sponsored Projects Administration Office. The date for that is going to be April 21st from 10 to 12 a.m. And like I said, pass that along, please, to junior faculty in your departments that might be interested in writing those types of grants. I also want to mention or just remind everyone about the research forum that's coming up. That's on April the 15th. The registration has closed at this point. I know that we had close to 100 students and graduate students put in the register to make a presentation at the forum, which is a really good turnout. I suspect that if there was a last minute, oh my gosh, I really need to try to get my student in there, you could probably contact Retta Seymour in the McNair program, and you might be able to convince her to make an adjustment. So that's just a possibility if this is out there still. Let's see. I also want to mention that just today, the SIU Research Park sent out an announcement. So if any of the faculty or graduate students have a product or an idea or something that they think they're interested to try to commercialize, the Research Park is going to host a series of meetings where they talk about how to go through the protection of intellectual property, how to get patents, how to start companies, how to get investors, and all the different steps that are involved in that process. It's held over a period of 6 weeks, 1 hour, well, basically one time a week. It starts on March the 25th is the first workshop. It's held from 12 to 1:30, although my understanding is the presentation is basically supposed to run from 12 to 1, and then the 1 to 1:30 period is reserved for questions. And, it's just sort of clarifications, discussions, if you will. So if anyone's interested in that, if you're following the Research Matters listserv and some of the other listservs, I know an announcement has gone out, or you can go to the Research Park website. I'm sure it's posted there as well. They do request that you register for this. And so if you have this great idea that's going to make you $1 million, and of course the university would be happy to take a cut of that, but please consider going to these workshops. They'll give you all kinds of useful information on how to move through that process. I think that's really it, although I do always like to remind everyone, if you're not registered for the Research Matters listserv, even though I know for any given individual, there's a lot of things that maybe aren't that relevant to you, but we send out all kinds of notifications on that listserv. I would certainly encourage you to consider signing up for it. For example, just today, something called the Research and Grant Writing Newsletter just went out. If you haven't seen this, it's a great resource no matter what area you're in. They have lots of things for science, for engineering, for the humanities. It's a really fantastic resource. So we send out monthly whenever we get it, and it goes through the Research Matters listserv. So please, if you haven't thought about joining that, certainly give that some thought. That's it for me.
Thank you, Gary. We have no old or new business on the agenda. Amber, we did not have anybody request for public comments to us, so we can go through that. I just wanted to say in the announcements, it's been a year since we shut down, and it's been a very crazy year, and with a lot of changes in the faculty, and I really appreciate all that you guys have done this past year. We're starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel, and so let's just keep moving forward, and we will get through this. And so if there's nothing else, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. I see Jennifer hand up and several others. So again, have a great day, and we'll see you guys at the next meeting.
Hey, Grant, can you stick around for a second, you and Marcus?
Yeah.
I almost hit the click off. Remember, we are being recorded and live on YouTube. Do we want to?
Oh, I just want to ask you real quick. I was just going to suggest that we might want to talk to Jim about the election